asked him, I said,
Better not say that. Yeah, that's.
All right, we are right at 7 o'clock and we have an action-packed hour ahead of us, so I want to get started right on time. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm Maureen Amyot, the Library Director here at the Westborough Public Library. I know most of you. I wanted to hold a candidates night because we have, in the almost 14 years that I've been working here, I can't remember a time where we had this many candidates running for seats on the Board of Trustees. So this is an opportunity for you to get to know our candidates, hear from them about their reasons for running, and to be able to ask them questions. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to ask them to go in order down the row and introduce themselves. They've prepared some statements and they'll let you know which seats they're running for and what their priorities are. So,
Okay. I'm Debra Cushman and I'm running for the 3-year Library Trustee position.
And I am Mike Karp, and I also am running for the 3-year position.
I'm Mello. I'm running for the 3-year position again.
I'm Julia Rissmiller. I'm also running for the 3-year position. And I'm Jeanine Mindrum, and I'm running for the 1-year position.
and we're missing Ciaran O'Donnell. I'm not sure if he's running late, but hopefully he'll join us too. So Deb, would you start and give us a little introduction? Tell us about yourself and why you want to be a library trustee.
Sure. Hi, my name is Deb Cushman, and I'm running for re-election to a 3-year seat as a trustee of the library, having served for the past 2 years in this role. I moved to Westborough 7 years ago with my husband and 2 children. We are a family of readers, and when we first moved to town, the library was one of our first stops. I was happy to find such a welcoming place in the heart of our new community and to leave with a tall stack of books. I've spent over 17 years as a school psychologist supporting children and their families. My work has helped me develop skills needed as a trustee, including addressing individual and institutional concerns, budgeting, participating in strategic planning, working to meet federal and state requirements, and engaging with members of the community. Guiding me always has been my belief in serving others. I've always been a lover of books, but the 21st century library is much more than books. It is a hub of our community. I've seen firsthand how the library works to meet the diverse needs of community members and bring people together. Whether it is participating in teen events, finding a quiet study space, enjoying a family movie night, or accessing tech support, there's something for everyone. As our community and our world continue to change and grow, I want to ensure that our library is ready to meet the needs and wants of all of Westborough. When people think of the library, they often think of a calm and quiet space. While the Westborough Library is often those things, my 2 years as a trustee have been anything but calm and quiet. I've helped see our library through a pandemic and worked towards a major renovation and expansion that was passionately debated and ultimately defeated at town meeting. Now the trustees are working to identify the necessary repairs for our beloved but aging building. On a smaller scale, I've helped review and update library policies and directly supported the programs that engage our community. It has been 2 years of talking, listening, and learning so that we can continue to give Westborough the library it needs and deserves. If I am re-elected as library trustee, I will continue this important work. Thank you.
Next is Michael Karp.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Karp. I moved to Westborough in 2001. My wife and I when we bought our house here, it was, I think, the 7th house we bought in some 50 plus years of marriage. Well, it wasn't 50 plus years. But when it was time to downsize, we decided this was the place for us. A decision that even today seems to be the right one. We were fortunate to be able to find a place in Westborough that was appropriate for us. In terms of my background, I have degrees from Franklin and Marshall and Brandeis, and a lot of graduate work in a lot of places, including in Massachusetts, Harvard, BU, Brandeis, Boston State, in various and sundry areas, and additional work at Penn. I'm actually one of the few men you'll find from Bryn Mawr. Let's see, while a grad student, to take care of a few incidental expenses, I took a job that most people have told me is the worst job they've ever heard of. I was a subject of the pain threshold experiment. And this was at UMass, at Mass General in Boston. I was apparently very successful at it because once I found out that you got an extra $5 if you made it all the way through the session. So I was able to, if not support my family, at least support the commute into Boston and back again. My professional work, and I do have some of that as well, I was 10 years in the education business. I was a teacher in the smallest K-12 system in the Commonwealth. That's the town of Douglas. And I was also the head of English and foreign languages for the most urban district in, at that point it was the whole East Coast, the city of Chelsea. And saw that through some interesting times. I taught AP English there, amongst other things, and it brought to the forefront the importance of a place where knowledge can be disseminated, where facts can be curated, and it's particularly important where we have a population that can't necessarily access this stuff themselves. So I left teaching after a 10-year career there. Was in high tech for 40 years. Spent most of my time on the road, unfortunately, but managed to wind up here. And of course, most importantly, I have 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren. So, and why do I want to do this? I don't want to spend time with my children and grandchildren. Well, I do, but they're not so thrilled with seeing me show up on their door. But this is a really interesting time. There are lots of external pressures in addition to the internal issues that the library staff is dealing with. And it's going to take some judicious decision-making in order to get us moving in the right direction. So I would like to participate in that. Thank you.
Next is Mello.
I'm Dottie Mello. I've been in Westborough for the last 40 years, I think, and I've raised our kids here. I'm a teacher in the Westborough school system, and I've been the trustee since 2008. That was the year we had our I've been a trustee since 2008, and that was the 100th anniversary of the original building. This is the 1980 edition here, and it seemed at first you joined up as a trustee because you like books, but there's a lot more going on here, as you well know now, than just books. And people were murmuring that they wanted a bigger library with more rooms for little meetings and things like that, tutoring. And that sort of got the idea of turning the library into a bigger one. And took some surveys with the community, and people said, oh yes, we need more meeting rooms, we need more space. And so the idea of the addition grew. And unfortunately, a few things got in the way, and it didn't happen when we started out 2012. So things got more expensive, and you know the result of that. So here we are now, and I'd like to stay on board as a trustee and make some of the changes that we can afford to make given the limits of taxation and being without our library grant. So I'm happy to keep working. You will elect. Thank you.
Next is Julia Rissmiller.
I'm going to just read mine because I'm not as good at talking off the cuff. So my name's Julia Rissmiller. I live here in Westborough with my 2 school-age kids. One is at Mill Pond and one's at Gibbons. And I am a supporter of the library. So when we moved here, we used the library a lot, but then my appreciation really grew and took hold when the pandemic happened, and the library had contactless drop-off and pickup, and that was kind of a big highlight for us to come over here and pick up some books and return what we had and had some new reading material. And then so since then, I've just become more interested in everything that the Westborough Library offers, and also the role of public libraries nationwide. Libraries serve and support everyone, regardless of age, income, and background, and each library can also tailor their programming and services to their individual community. I am running for a trustee seat because I'm interested in serving the community. I have a particular interest in service to those who do not have the ability to vote, whether it's due to age, so children, citizenship status, other barriers such as language. I really don't have my own agenda to promote. I'm really more interested in being a team member with the other library trustees and continuing to work on to do the work that they do, as well as hopefully working with other committees and organizations in town to make some improvements and offer new services and programs.
Is Jeanine Mindrum.
So I lived in Westborough for many years with my husband, and he died in 2020. So I'm kind of starting a whole new chapter in life at this point. I'm a speech pathologist, and I've worked for 35 years in early intervention with children under the age of 3. And I specialize in working with autistic toddlers and their parents. Many, many years ago, I lived in France for 5 years. So right now I'm looking for every opportunity to talk in French because I'm going to go back in April and I'm pretty excited about it. So anyone wants to practice in French with me, we're good. The reason I want to participate in this election is because I love the library and I want to support it any way that I can. It's an extremely valuable resource for the community and certainly a valuable resource for me because I depend on it for the many, many, many books that I read. And I depend on the staff to answer questions, help me find resources. I'm going to sign up for Canopy so I can stream movies in French. And as I mentioned in the newspaper article, as Julia said, the library provided a lot of support to people during the pandemic. And that was really, really important. My approach was when I saw that other countries were going to lockdown, I came to the library and checked out 30 books. Because a lockdown without books. And then I was also a frequent visitor when they had the tent outside, and I really appreciated the huge amount of work that was, and that was a lifeline for people in the community, so it was wonderful. I also followed the plans for the library expansion, and I was disappointed when it didn't pass. But what I'm interested in is finding ways to support the library in ways that can receive support from our town.
And last but not least, Ciaran O'Donnell.
Yes, so you already know who I am because Maureen has introduced me. So I lived in Westborough. I first came to Westborough in 2015. Apart from a brief departure, I've been here ever since. Before that, I lived in California, so I have a bit of a complicated life. I was born in the United Kingdom, in Glasgow, and when I was 12, I went to Canada, where I did my bachelor's. And then I went to France, so at Jeanine, I've been in France for a while. I was in France 16 years before I came to California about 20 years, and you know the rest. So I'm going to start by being blunt And I did vote no on the library expansion. I don't think it's really positive to go into too much details about the yes and the no, because in my life, when a decision is made, it's made, you know? If my wife and I decide to get divorced, and then it's done, there isn't much going over it. My main concern was the finances. You know, a 50% increase in what's being asked from the public is a lot. You know, I would have supported the project in its initial form. You know, it's very unfortunate that, so I guess you could say the reason that I'm running is that there is clearly a division in this town regarding the library, because 700 voters came and voted no to giving more money to the library, and 500 people came and voted yes. And I believe in, I'm a big believer in negotiation and conciliation. I mentioned divorce, I am divorced, so I learned a lot about that, about the need to avoid conflict and to be civil and moderate and try to just move forward. So I think we find ourselves in kind of an unfortunate situation. The library probably is too small. There definitely is work to be done, but I guess I have some issues with the process. The process always seems to involve asking to give hundreds of thousands of dollars to consultants, and the consultants come back a year later, and the public gives a yes or no vote. I would like to see something that's more participatory. Now, as for libraries in general, I've always used libraries. I used a library when I was a kid to read about Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, as well as, you know, some literary people. And I used a library in Santa Clara, and I just ordered Hillary Clinton's, not Hillary Clinton, Mrs. Obama's, Michelle Obama's biography. So I think there are a lot of good books in the library. I was very stunned. For example, there is a biography of Muhammad. That's not the kind of thing you will find in a lot of places. So that's my part of it.
So I have a few questions that the candidates were given ahead of time. So we're going to go through those, and then we'll turn it over to you for your questions. And we'll just go down the row because that's the easiest way. And Deb, being at the beginning of the alphabet, is accustomed to that and going first. So the first question is, what is the most important issue facing the Westborough Public Library right now, and how will you address that?
So the most important issue that I see right now is the state of the building and the repairs that need to be made. It's an old building. The original building is over 100 years old, and the addition is over 40 years old at this point, and there are a lot of systems that are failing or about to fail, infrastructure that's inadequate, things that are, may need to be addressed in terms of ADA or other building code compliance. So there's a lot that needs to be done. But I also, I agree with a lot of what you just said. When I think of the library, I think of a place where people come together, and it makes me really sad that the library has become a subject of division for our community. So in terms of thinking about repairs, there are experts that we need to work with. Absolutely. I don't know about construction. I need experts about construction to help us with this process. but we do need this to be a very participatory process. We do need to engage our community more in this process, I think, moving forward, to have this be successful, to help us prioritize what repairs need to be made, and get everybody on board and make sure that the library, at the end of this process, whatever repairs happen, we end up with the library that people want, and that this is a successful process in the end. And that people feel good about the library, and that this is a place where people come together instead of have negative associations with this space. So.
I think it's pretty obvious that the Westborough Public Library has played a significant role in most citizens' lives. Not all, but most. I drive by here on a Saturday, and I see kids lined up at 9 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, waiting to get in. I don't remember ever doing that when I was in school, but it's nice that we have an environment here that does that. We have a series of issues within the walls here. Pipes leak, windows leak, ceiling leaks. The roof is not what it once was 100 years ago when it was put on. It's not just the flat parts, it's also the slate elements. None of this is cheap, and we're not even ADA compliant in terms of the bathrooms. I'm not sure how that impacts our ability to go out and get grants, but it's clearly not a good thing, irrespective of the situation with the grants. Everybody who lives in Westborough or who wants to access the Westborough Library should have access to equal access to the Westborough Library. I guess if I were to try to get it down and get the single most important issue down into one sentence, it would be we have to maintain measured growth and open access in a time of budgets, of severe budget strains. This is going to be a challenge, but it's one I think we have to meet.
Thank you. Todd?
Well, I'm gonna read most of what I wrote the other day thinking about this. I was on the initial building committee, so some of my thoughts are colored by that, and seeing the process from hiring the architect to watching them build the dream library that Maureen's mentioned many times, and quite a few of you in the audience are on the building committee. So much of what I say here we've covered at board meetings, and it's very much like what Deb and Mike said. The most important issue facing the library right now is maintaining the structural integrity of the historic building. Without the State Board of Library Commissioners grant, this responsibility falls to the taxpayers. Essentially, we need to maintain the windows, the roof, the copper flashing, the masonry on the outside. We need to take care of the electric system, the HVAC system, fire protection, plumbing, insulation, and the elevator. And all of these things are expensive. There's no doubt about it. We need to meet the building code to do any of this legally. And anytime you start trying to meet building codes, it gets expensive again. You want to be ADA compliant so that everyone can come here and use the facilities. And everybody wants to have a strong digital life these days, a good Wi-Fi system. You can sit here right now and you can hop on the Wi-Fi And after the library closes, you can still sit outside and hop on the Wi-Fi again. And yet we still need better digital system than we've got to keep everyone truly happy. So these are just some of the things that need to be done to keep us current in the library world and meet your needs. Thank you.
In terms of the most important issues facing the library, as everyone has already said, certainly the building structure. But I also want to say that I know that the Library Building Committee has been working on this for years, has discussed this with experts, and so I'm not here to come and say this is what needs to be done, because honestly, that's not my area of expertise. But one really important issue that I think is important that everybody know about is the treatment of the staff. As of recently, I think since the library vote happened, a lot of the staff have been at the receiving end of some rude comments, harassment, and just really poor treatment. And that's totally unacceptable. I know that the trustees are working on developing a new policy for a code of conduct, but I think it's really important that everybody knows that this is going on, and that it really needs to be addressed and won't be tolerated, because everybody obviously deserves to be treated with respect, whether they work in the library or go to the library or on any of the committees or anywhere in town. So I just think that that's a really, really important issue. And, hopefully we have a great building, but also without the staff, we won't have a library either. So I think the staff should know that they do such an outstanding job, and that we really value them and treat them well.
Jeanine?
So I was really thinking about how we could make this more participatory, because I really think that needs to happen. And I was thinking of, how we could create new ways to connect with residents so that we could work as a team to plan and carry out new ventures for the library that everyone feels good about. When I was collecting signatures, 2 people told me that they would really like to have someone from the library board come to the senior center on a regular basis to talk with them about what's happening and answer their questions. And I mentioned that last month when I came to the board meeting, and it's already happening. March 7th, it's going to happen. So I think that's really cool. So I'm thinking maybe there are other groups in town that would like the same thing. Maybe they would like a chat with the library board to keep them abreast and have them be able to answer their questions and give their opinions. And I was thinking we could, because obviously we really talked about what needs to happen in the building, and clearly we all know things need to happen. I mean, I'm learning about HVACs, which I didn't even know existed, and they're not good. They're not in good shape, and they catch fire, and none of that is good. So we need to figure out what things we can repair, what's going to receive support from the community, and understand what needs to happen better. I think everyone needs to really understand what's happening. I was thinking one thing we could do is partner with the senior center and offer some activities there until we can offer accessibility at this building. So maybe there's other things like that we could do to bring the community into it. And so we would work as a team.
Thank you. Ciaran?
Yeah, well, the last 2 speakers have spoken very eloquently, so I'm not going to plagiarize. I entirely agree with them. And I was actually quite shocked, actually, when I recently heard about this issue of abuse. I really didn't think, maybe you could meet somebody, on the street and abuse them, stuff like that. But a civil servant, no way.
But not the library.
That should be against the law or something like that. In France, if you insult a police officer, you get arrested. So I would make kind of an analogy. First of all, I'm glad that there are so many capable candidates. I would say that when we talk about what the library needs, that's kind of like blood in your body. If you don't have enough of it, you're dead. And the staff are kind of like the bones of the body or the muscles, whatever you want to choose. But what's important, the most important thing, are the people that come to the library. You want to draw people to the library, whether they come here physically or whether they come here, over a computer. You want to draw people to the library, and that shouldn't just be children. And as regarding the HVACs and stuff like that, I am a very much bottom-up person, but with these issues, I think it's very important to be top-down. You don't really need to know much about HVACs. If someone tells you that the HVACs needs to be repaired, you can, I can be suspicious, but that's usually useless in exchanges. So I'd like to see a kind of a top-down list of priorities, and the repairs are obviously one of them. But just getting more people to support the library and also maybe thinking a little bit out of the box. Now, I don't have solutions, but I'll just give you an example of something like that. In the Philippines, they have churches and shopping malls. What's wrong with a library and a shopping mall? It might be cheaper. There's a shopping mall around here that just got sold for $11 million. The Westborough Technology Park got sold for $20 million. So the price of buildings can vary a lot. It's because of supply and demand. And but I don't have any real immediate solutions.
Our next question, what new initiatives, if any, would you like to see the library undertake during your term if you're elected?
You do a wonderful job of leading into the next things that I want to say, so thank you. One of the things that I was thinking about while listening to the debate at town meeting, I was listening to a lot of people talking about the library being about books and being for young children, and it being rather shocking for me because I see all that the library has to offer, and realizing that there are so many people in town who do not know all that our library has to offer. So for me, initiative would really be to continue to educate our community and our taxpayers about all that the library has. Here, virtually, programs, materials, books, and other materials, which I know that library staff does a really great job with outreach on social media, but I just wonder if there's more that we could be doing. If there are people who still think that the library is just for little kids and books. Today I went onto the website and took a quick glance at what are some of the programs happening this month. And, there's always so many. There's beyond the 8 billion story times. There's meditation and job networking groups working on resumes. And there was cookie decorating for teens. And I'm trying to think what else. There was just so much. And of course, there's all things in the library beyond books, all sorts of materials in our room of things. And I think that there's a lot of people who still don't know that. Educating people not only so they can support things like the funding repairs for the library, but also so they come in the door and take advantage, because this is their library and I want people in here taking advantage of all that the library has to offer. So I think that's an important initiative that's already happening in many ways, but continuing to build on that.
I have nothing to argue with what she said. I think that there are two things we have to look at. The first is we need a bit more flexibility intramural within the building itself. If we have one wall, that doesn't mean it can only be used for one thing. If we do more things in using existing software off a screen display, we can cater to a slew of different opportunities for people. Possibly even more important, though, is our outreach program. Westborough has many more groups now than it used to. We have many languages coming in here. We have all sorts of needs, many of which are currently being serviced through the library. I've been in here, and I too have seen people sharpening up their job skills, talking with people from. Well, actually, I'm not sure where they were from, but they were engrossed and engaged. We have kids coming in. When I first saw kids coming in here early in the morning, I thought it was to study. Maybe for many of them it was, but also I was told when I was wandering around the library that they're helping out some of us older folks with various technological issues. This is a good thing. And I'd like to see us emphasize that even more than we're doing now. Outreach also has the advantage of allowing you to put your best foot forward and to attract folks who will support you when the next time you go out to to either look for funds or look for whatever it is you need to increase the viability of the library. And I'll stop there.
Right now, I don't know if we can undertake any expensive new initiatives. We want to try and keep the things that are in the pipeline, so to speak, going so that we can keep the building structurally sound and, as I mentioned earlier, upgrade the necessary parts of the building. Certainly, we do outreach. We do outreach to Arrive and Windsor Ridge. We have talked about taking books to the senior center. We have a number of people who go out and deliver books so that if you can't get to us, we can send somebody to you. And that's worked out very well. When you see the pictures that Maureen posts of the librarians going over to visit the kids after school at the apartments, it's really very cute. And they like it, and they do little projects with them. And that's our way of reaching the community right now. Leading up to the renovation project, there were all sorts of community forums, which in various groups, which if people want to take advantage of them, they were there. So with that, I'll pass it on to Ciaran.
So I don't really have my own personal agenda. I totally agree with Deb in that I think it would be really great to reach more of the community that are not the regular users, and just find out how to get them more involved and more interested in using the library and the resources and what things might drive people who haven't been to their library or the website in a long time. And also just kind of I'd be interested in just talking to other organizations in town, and working with organizations as well as some of the other committees to collaborate on projects or ideas that they might have as well. So at this point, I don't really have my own personal agenda to promote, but just sort of more being interested in what other people would like.
And I agree. I think it's wonderful to get out in the community. That most of the things that I have already said are some of the initiatives that I would like to see happen. I'd like to be out in the community, finding out what people are interested in, what they would support, and helping them learn more about what's going on here, all the great stuff. I mean, like Deb, I was looking at the website, and it's amazing how many things are going here, and I didn't realize many of them. I was also thinking that we might want to survey families to find out what support parents might find useful. I think a lot of the new initiatives could be people-based, not so much funding-based, and we could come up with things that people could do for the community, and that would be pretty useful.
Well, I agree with a lot of what other people and Jeanine just said. I agree that, you know, money is not always major constraint. Often it's time, people's energy, people's goodwill. There are just little things. In Santa Clara, we had quite a number of Chromebooks. Of course, it's a much bigger town. It's 100,000, I guess 120,000 people. But we had Chromebooks. You could use the Chromebook inside the library. And they are very good and they're very inexpensive. I just bought one with a touch panel and a 15-inch display for $200. But that's a detail. Another detail is we have a lot of artists in town. So you have all those pictures on the wall, but we could try to turn the library into a little bit of a gallery where people could make their work known. I don't know exactly how you would do that. One simple thing that you could do, one thing that I've always thought of is we live in a very different world than, say, when the library was last renewed in 1980. In just like 45 years, the world has really changed. And, you know, like there's one word, you know, Google, you know. And depending on how well you know how to use Google, you can find out a great deal of things, not everything. And there's times you shouldn't use it. Or you can, what I'm saying is that people can be educated in search. And libraries is a function of search. Another thing that I would like to see is an outreach to businesses and to job seekers. Because there are a lot of databases available that cost money, so individuals can't have them, but they can are affordable for an institution, and you know, which can be helped in a lot of ways. We had that at Santa Clara. And another thing, this is not the only library in town. For example, my church is a library of religious books. Now, I don't think we should load the library with religious books, but we can have pointers on the website to other places to look. You know, all it costs is a link. The other people, if somebody wants it, they have to put up their website and we have to agree with it. So that's all I have to say.
And our last question for our candidates. There have been efforts in other parts of the state and other parts of the country to have books removed from library collections, mostly books that feature LGBTQ characters and themes, and books by or about people of color. How would you, as a trustee, react to a challenge like that if it happened here in Westborough?
Well, I think that this is where it is really important that our library has strong policies in place, and luckily we do. And the library trustees have already developed a collection development policy that describes how the materials in the library are acquired, what criteria are used to decide which materials are acquired for the library. And it also includes if there are complaints about any materials, the process that happens then. And that is really important so that there can be a fair and consistent response. I mean, personally, I would be dismayed if a complaint would happen, but as a trustee, I think it's really important that we respond in a fair and consistent manner. And it's all laid out in the policy, which you can see, I believe it's on the website. I imagine it's here at the front desk. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but I know it's on the website. And that includes whoever's completing a form with their specific complaints, and Maureen would review it, meet with the person to understand it, review why the materials were acquired, where it fits in with the acquisition criteria, You, I believe, would make a ruling and present it to the trustees who would then vote on it. So it's really looking as objectively as possible where this fits in with the criteria and the mission of the library, keeping in mind that the library values intellectual freedom, knowing that our library and I believe our town really does value having a variety of viewpoints and perspectives on any given topic. That's where these policies are really important to let us respond to complaints such as that. So that's how I would respond. I would be personally saddened and as a trustee respond by following our set procedures.
Well, when I look at book removal, book banning, the first thing I did was think about who is there in the world within the last 100 years that have banned books or burned books. And we look at, let's see, there was, in the early years of the Soviet Union, there was a lot of that going on there. Of course, Nazi Germany was famous for that. If you look today in both Iran and Russia, you will find increasingly limiting access to sources of information, and also recently in Africa, in the country of Mali, the oldest library in Africa is in the city of Timbuktu, or was. Well, the building is still there, but it was gutted by Al-Qaeda. I, for one, don't want to be classified as somebody who's in the same bucket as Al-Qaeda, or any of the others for that matter. If I look at the history of our country, it's dismaying to note that there's only one country in the world that has ever passed laws against literacy, and the only country with anti-literacy laws has been the United States. Prior to and then immediately after the Civil War, the penalties were pretty harsh for whites who tried to educate blacks, and then non-whites more generally. They could be imprisoned for some substantial time. And what happened to the people who were learning to read, the people who didn't break free, like Frederick Douglass, people who had to learn in the South, the penalties were significantly worse. So this is not there's no way to condone that. Once a book winds up in a library, it is sacrosanct. And until there is until there's the full process for removing that, and thanks to the current library trustees, we have a process. Unless that full process is executed, there's no one gets their hands on it. If people want their children not to read certain things, then it's time to toe the line, parents, and go and start parenting, and tell them why they shouldn't read things. Talk to them about what they've read if they have read things that you disagree with, and leave the library to service those people who, when they feel when they or their parents feel they're ready to read these books. Let the library be in a position to disseminate them. Children, this is not really an age issue. Children at the same age are often at different levels of maturity. I think parents are the ones to make responsible decisions for their own children. I certainly, although I say this with great respect to the audience, you after all did show up. I don't want you making decisions for my children or my grandchildren, although I'm sure you're all wonderful people. And I believe in reciprocity. I will not try to make decisions for your children.
Well, pieces of our collection have been challenged occasionally in the past, and the trustees have supported a policy of really no censorship, regardless of the topic. And no one is forced to take out, as you said, anything that's in the library. But it is up to the parents to guide children in their selection. It's not up to the staff here or the trustees. So our collection is varied. If you get on Library every Wednesday when the collection of new books is published, look it up. Very helpful. You'll find that we have books in many languages, more languages than you would think, and multiple copies, so that kids could have a little book group together, even little board books in other languages. So you can read with your friend, or you can read in English, and I can read in my language. So it's possible to have something for everybody, we like to think. So that's about it on that topic. Something for everyone, and anyone can take it who wants to. Thank you.
So I don't know as much as Deb knows because she's a current trustee, but I know that the trustees has a policy, and it's like as Deb said, it's important just to have that in place for when this does happen, just so that there's a consistent response. And then I also just, there's no place really for censorship in public libraries. On the American Library Association website, they have a few different areas where it's brought up, and so I just copied and pasted a couple of sentences. But in the Code of Ethics, the American Library Association states that we uphold the principles of intellectual freedom and resist all efforts to censor library resources. In the Bill of Rights, it says that libraries should provide materials and information presenting all points of view on current and historical issues. Materials should not be proscribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. And then the freedom to read statement, which starts with the freedom to read is essential to our democracy. And that was actually from 1953. It's so relevant today, which I thought was pretty amazing. But
So I'm just learning about the library's policy, but it seems really well done and very complete, and that's what would have to be followed. I also was looking at the American Library Association, and they're talking about that we need to respect people's First Amendment rights, to have a right to see information on both sides of every issue, and that libraries need to defend the constitutional rights of all individuals to use the library's resources and services. So,
Yeah, so that's three of us that went to the American Library Association website. I'm not sure in my case if it's a proof of being educated about libraries, because the biggest thing I know about libraries is the GUE classification system. This is kind of an intellectual question, a philosophical question. And the issue is everyone censors something. Some things are simply not acceptable for enough people that we don't allow it in a library. For example, you wouldn't find Mein Kampf in any of the C.W. Marshall libraries, but you would find it in a bookstore. I'm generally just not afraid of, in favor of banning books. But what I wanted to make is the philosophical point. The argument is, there's two arguments on the American Library Association website. One is that librarians don't censor, they select. But think of it as a pipeline. You can censor at the beginning of the pipeline, or you can censor at the end. In Russia, when there were censors, in the last century, because they always had censorship in Russia, You had to write your book and then give it to them. But you can also stop the stuff from being printed in the first place. So what I'm saying is that when you select a book, selection is a complex process. It's the book's quality, the number of people that will read the book, and then you get to the, is this a book which we really shouldn't have? And you'll find people on both sides of the issue. For example, in the CW-MAR system, there is a book called When Mary Meets Sally, which is kind of criticizing transgender ideology, and which is a work of intellectual freedom. It's not a personal attack or anything like that. Amazon doesn't sell it, and it's in one of the libraries. Here in our library, we have a book called The Ethical Slut. It's in 5 of the libraries out of 150. There again, people would be for it or against it. The second point I want to make is about children. I really think it's more important, because the question of if we focus too much on the question of censorship, we'll lose the whole point, because I don't know who wants to ban books. The big issue is how to bring up our children, or other people's children, because mine are grown up, so that they can succeed in a globalized and very competitive world. I'm a computer scientist, and I've seen how competitive the world is, because I'm constantly competing with young people. I just had a discussion yesterday with my boss, who's 25 years younger than me. He's saying you have to be faster. So, that's what I think the focus should be on. I don't have any problems with books with LGBTQ characters or anything like that, as long as, the book has literary worth. I just think that nobody should have to reject it.
Well, we touched on a whole lot of issues tonight, and now we're ready for your questions for our candidates.
Ciaran, I want you to continue with that thought, because you're talking about children. So are you talking also about our teen rooms? And you're talking about books with themes that may be controversial, and you're saying based on literary merit. What is your definition of literary merit?
Well, a definition of literary merit is kind of like artistical merit. It's made after the fact. Van Gogh didn't get very much money before he died.
I want concrete examples, please.
Well, for me, Harlequin romances has a lot less literary merit than the Brothers Karamazov.
But if we have users that enjoy the Harlequin romances,
That's exactly the point I make. The selection function uses multiple criteria.
right, but if we have a teen section that touches on topics that maybe you deem inappropriate, if you have a seat on the Library Board of Trustees, how do you grapple with that?
Well,
How do you support the library?
I said to you that I'm generally not in favor of banning books, but I'm going to kind of answer your question with a question. What is the difference between this issue of children's access to anything and it's parents' job to do everything to stop them, and the issue that we're currently debating about Facebook and all the internet basically printing inappropriate stuff? And I'll give you a concrete example. I worked with a guy called Hagen Last, and he has a couple of kids. He's from Germany. He's in California. He had a 17-year-old son called Ryan. And Ryan died because of stuff that was on the internet. So what happened was he was basically convinced to give sexually compromising photos of himself. He was an Eagle Scout. This guy had great grades. And then he was blackmailed to get the money. And he didn't want to say it to his parents. and he didn't know what to do, and he felt ashamed, and he killed himself. So there are limits to freedom. That's just the point that I'm making.
But when you limit access to information, you're depriving people of developing critical thinking skills in order to wrestle with ideas.
But I don't see why you're saying, so you're accusing me basically of limiting access to information. Why?
I'm not, because we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago and that we never really got to finish. And you were upset because, you know, we didn't have a book, you said, of on Mother Teresa, which actually we do.
We've got 4 books on Mother Teresa.
Thank you. But, you know, you were also kind of upset that, I think it was Daniel Steele, we had a lot of shelf space to Daniel Steele, and you were talking about we should maybe focus more on important books. And we went through and you asked me a bunch of, you know, classic authors. And we had all of those authors in the book, in the library, except for Sartre, which we can get, you know, in the library system. So, I mean, have you changed your position? Because you made it very clear that you felt that the library should focus more on classic literature and what you called important books. And you were very dismissive of an author who happens to be very popular, especially with our older users. So I'm just confused.
Can you remind me of your name?
Joanne.
Joanne, I think you're being quite unfair to me.
I'm sorry, I don't.
No, let me speak.
I will.
You spoke a fair bit. You're taking a personal discussion and presenting it from your point of view and challenging me on it. Why don't we deal with it one-on-one after this meeting is over?
Okay, but
That is what I request of you. Otherwise, you can say whatever you want. I will not respond.
That's fair, but I just, in the sake of transparency, because we were having a conversation in front of other people that differs from what I'm hearing tonight, and I'm genuinely curious whether your position has changed or, I'm not trying to be disingenuous, I'm genuinely at a loss.
I think she's actually trying to help you out because I know that within the community, this has been attached to you. So it's almost.
Give me an example.
In the community, it is attached that you perhaps may, if elected, try to take away things like the teen room, LGBTQ books. And so I think what we're really trying to do is give you a fair chance to kind of put some of that to rest.
Oh, okay, I have no problem with that. And,
Do you know what I'm saying?
I thank you for the clarification. I have no desire in the slightest to take away the teen room or to take away LGBTQ books. And I know some of the books in the teen room because I read them. Because I think that the best way to know the world and to have power in the world, if you're a senior citizen like myself, is to know what young people are thinking.
I got one right here. I mean, so to the point where in that conversation, I absolutely, as a parent, understand that story you told me and don't want one of my children to have that same fear that they can't come to me because they might be shamed or they might feel shamed. And so that's why I really welcome the library and the school libraries because they're seeing the new way to be young. And honestly, the new way to be young is almost like a book. They're really just wanting to make believe, not make believe, but we learn through play. Right now, we're interacting, we're kind of playing, we're learning from each other. That's what our kids really want to do. And when they're seeing their friends doing it, they're going, well, that's not talked about at my house, or I've never seen that before. And then they see a book. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of books that have come home in my house. And then that's when the parents, because you were said, it really is on us. It really is. I mean, I know sometimes at the house they'll be watching things on YouTube and, you know, make sure they're on like big screens sometimes. And I'll walk by and I'll be like, don't be that person. And I'll just keep walking. Or I'll be like, I see what you're watching. If you have any questions, please, I'm here. Come ask me. So I know from our point, I think that we all understand there is this fear, there is this division. And as you were saying as well, the more we're kind of educated on it, you know, the more access we have to all different kind of points of view, so the better we can prepare our children and prevent these tragedies.
Yeah, it's a tough issue.
And I like the art idea, by the way, too. There's a lot of, 'cause I know what I wrote, it's representation. Like, that's what I think we really are hoping. I love it, Danielle Steele. That represents a part of some people's soul, that like, those people that want to be swept away by romance, right? You know, you want to, if you're of a different ethnic background, you want to be able to walk in the library and see your face on the cover of a book. If you're, you know, I could give all the examples. And back in Mother Teresa, she is your, you know, your rock, so when you hold it, you want to see that too. So I think that is where I'm going to stop on. So I'm not running for library. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome though.
Now
I do love the art idea.
let me give you kind of a really radical idea. There are a lot of people that have books in town. Like, I don't know how many books I have. Like, let's say 250, and that's in an apartment. And there was a little 7-year-old girl who was talking to, and she said, "Have you read all those books?" It was her birthday. And of course I haven't. But maybe we could make the books that the citizens have available for use for other citizens if they so wish. You know, probably only 5 or 10% of the people would sign up. But, you know, the books I get don't really cost all that much money nowadays because there's so many secondhand books.
So I believe what you're saying is that if we want certain books, we should either be buying them ourselves or asking our neighbors for them?
No, I'm saying we should let the whole community contribute to what books are available. And not just professionals. Yeah, the professionals
Are you
can
talking about picking
pick.
out the books or donating books that you have from your house? Because that was a question I was going to assume you might be answering. Is because you did have a point. Censoring, you're right, could either start at the beginning or it could happen sometime after it's in the library. So Maureen, who picks out the book, I'm asking who picks out the books, and I'm going to assume that there is some sort of, like if somebody complains about a book after, you also have a criteria to look at.
Exactly.
You're not gonna have a book that says like, I hate all.
No.
You know, that would automatically be, I think, a fair censorship, right?
Yeah.
We had a hand raised in the back.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from more of the candidates, and one thing, it's a two-part question. One is, we consider ourselves, any library consider themselves a hub. Again, we do here. I ask you as you get elected, you'll be one of 9 people. How would you go about getting the community involved, bringing the community here? I heard some of it, you had something to add to that, that's fine. Part 2 is, what do you see the involvement in the course of a month? Do you see it 2 hours in a meeting? Do you see it more involved in that? What do you see your commitment as a trustee? Thank you.
Who would like to go first?
Can I not go first?
You can not go first.
I can if you want me to, but.
I'll jump up then. There's more that when I got on the library board in 2008, the meeting lasted a little more than an hour, and it was kind of a summary of what had gone on in the past month, and there was nothing in the works yet for expansion, and that's pretty much what it was. Since then, there have been a lot more opportunities to participate in committee work. go out and speak in the community. Many of the trustees have gone out with Maureen or on behalf of Maureen and Lynn Sukup, the assistant director, in spreading information about the renovation. Very frankly, if you didn't hear about the renovation, you weren't listening. And because there were invitations sent out for neighbors in the immediate neighborhood to come and hear what the renovation would be like, how it would happen beforehand. Oh geez, way back. There were people going out looking at other libraries to see what they had that we could employ here. So there's plenty to do if you want involvement.
I'll add to that. One thing that I've seems to be taking up more and more of my time is watching recordings of other other town boards as their activities as they relate to the library. I mean, I've been watching lots of building committee meetings because I'm not able to attend those, but luckily they're all recorded, so I get to watch those and keep up with what's happening. And finance committee was last night, so I watched that. Well, part of that, the part that related to the library. So
and some of us went to it.
Yep.
So
was not able to go. But there's lots of things happening around town with other boards and committees that relate. So there's a lot to do.
Because other boards, what they decide often impacts us here
Yes.
in the library.
And then also what I was talking about before with outreach and increasing, making this more of a participatory process. I think that needs to increase moving forward. So I think that's only going to, the time commitment may only increase.
You know, I think again, there's not much to disagree with what you two have been saying. I think that we also, however, have several active social institutions within the town that we could reach out, and if you can sell the concept to the person in charge, that person can, working from the top down, can talk to the members of whichever group that is, and you get this wonderful one-to-many relationship where you actually have people who, in the course of your discussion with them, become invested in your idea, and then they push down on their people, and then at the appropriate time, there's a linkage between these little enclaves of whatever they are. They're religious groups, social groups, athletic groups, and this building right here. Excuse me, not with the building, with the people in the building.
I guess I mean, I say similar things. I know that the trustees do meet monthly, once a month, last Wednesday of the month. Fourth Wednesday. But I thought a lot about whether I was going to run or not. I talked to a bunch of people just to kind of see what it involved. And also, like I said before, I've been working with doing some work with Sustainable Westborough and a couple of other organizations in town, and I would see my role more as sort of reaching not just the meetings, but kind of trying to connect people and sort of work, bring people together to just again to identify what the library could do and how to make it better and everything. And even just with this election, I'm trying to get the word out and get more people to know about when the election is and how to vote and who's running and everything like that. So I think the more we can reach people in the community who aren't necessarily active users or know about the programming, the better.
Did you say the question was for, Bill, did you say the question was for 4 people, or did you want?
No, for all of you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I,
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
There's 2 parts, I think.
Yeah, one, the second part was how much are you willing to commit? What was the
The
first
first
part?
part was, we consider ourselves the hub of the community.
Okay.
How do you reach out and bring people into the hub, if you will? Plus the others.
Okay, I'll start. I don't think the library is the hub of the community. I'm not convinced that the community has a hub. It's kind of more like a labyrinth or a spider's web. There's several places where people connect. I think the library can be an enabler of things happening, because that's just easier, right? Like, suppose I learn about, somebody that I've never heard of. Suppose I learn about a friend of mine that just had a heart attack. Well, I'll say I'll pray for them, but I'll pass the message on to someone that is better than me. What I'm talking about is this about communication. The library can enhance communication. There are a lot of issues. There's more than one issue here. I mean, how to drive people to the library? Well, it's the same thing, how to get people to vote, right? We know that there's not going to be a lot of people to vote. So, I don't know. You have to brainstorm. That's a hard question, but it's a good question. Okay, in terms of the time, I don't know. I would be willing to give 10 hours a month. If I needed to give more, I'd consider it. And I could see myself playing different roles. Again, when I was talking to my boss, I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And then at the end, he said, well, you can do things without asking, I mean, I think it is good to have a list of proposed actions, because it's not just me and my boss and a small team. It's more structured.
so I love the idea of going out in the community and meeting with people and talking with them. I would really like doing that. So, if we can figure out what those groups are, I'd be happy to do that. And the other part of it was how much, well, I guess sometimes it's both of them.
Time commitment.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I love hearing what people are thinking. I had fun in front of Roach Brothers collecting signatures, and I learned a lot from people. I mean, many of those people said they didn't live here, and I suspect that might not be true, but.
One more question before we break up into, there's like 3 questions, all right. Rod, your hand was up first.
I'm really enjoying the discussion about books and staff and all the things we can do without spending a lot of money, which I think is terrific. I do have a bricks and mortar question, living next door, and my question for the group was, are you concerned about the parking issue and access to the library in terms of physically being able to get here? And 2, would you be for or against continuing a relationship with the church to have parking?
What was the last part of the question?
Would you be for or against having a relationship with the church to have parking on their parking lot? Maybe some context. The library trustees decided to end the relationship with the church to have parking there.
What was the relationship with the church?
That the public could park in the church parking lot.
But what was the rationale behind snapping a relationship that I guess was functioning at a reasonably efficient level?
That'd be up to some of the current trustees to.
That would be up for me to speak on that. If you don't mind, I'm happy to. Is that all right, Lo?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Mary Johnson. I'm currently the chair of the Library Board of Trustees. So, yep, for several years, the town has had an agreement with the church, that library patrons, when the church was not using the parking lot, could park in their parking lot. As you know, the impact of the library building project would have been significant on the church. So we've been in conversation with them over the past year about the impact of the library using the parking lot for construction. And during those conversations, we learned a lot about their concerns for their aging parking lot and the wear and tear and their concerns for it moving forward. It's a historic building. It has an older aging parking lot. And so in conversations after town meeting, the library trustees have been going through a process of, we learned a lot. We talked to a lot of people during that time. A lot of people had questions. So we were taking this as an opportunity to learn from what take action steps from what we learned by talking to people, and is there anything we could improve? And one of the discussions was the church the library church parking lot. And so I had asked the question, what would happen if we didn't park there? And the trustees learned that there had been times in the past where, due to other circumstances, the library has not used that parking lot, and it really didn't impact our serviceability here. It didn't impact our staff. And so the trustees decided, well, then we don't need to put that extra burden on the church parking lot. And so that's why we recommended to the select board, if they felt that they wanted to end that agreement, that we'd be fine with that. If we don't need to put extra burden on their property, then we wouldn't do that, trying to be a respectful neighbor. So we took the lessons we learned during our conversations from the building project and we applied that forward. So that's how that came to be. Your reactions to the church parking lot agreement is also one of the impacts that affected that decision. We learned a lot of people didn't know that they could even park there. So it really wasn't being used to that level. So that was another reason that we're like, well, if a lot of our patrons don't already know it, and our staff are okay not parking there, and the town through their parking study has told us there's plenty of parking spots downtown, then we encourage people to use the spots that are in town. So that's how that came to be.
Is there any downside to this?
Well, I mean, there is a perceived parking problem. So people that have that perception would say, why would you walk away from, extra spots downtown? But like I said, if that is a concern of our neighbors, they do have an aging parking lot and they do have an older building, and we're adding to that, then we don't need to add to that to be a respectful neighbor. So that's how that came up.
So I guess my question is, does anybody here think there's a parking issue for the library?
I think there probably is. And definitely, if you want to make more people come here, at some point there will be. And I don't understand why the agreement was terminated. And despite what has been said, I heard listened to what was being said. But I know the other side of this issue because I've talked to the church people, one of the church people, and the biggest issue is the building. The biggest issue is the building and the construction shaking, the stones underneath, stuff like that. That's what they're worried about because, they don't have the money to fix their church.
I mean, a lot of people, I live nearby, walk here when I come here, but a lot of people have said, I've had a lot of people say that they have never had a problem parking here. I've heard people say that they don't feel comfortable parking in certain spots nearby because it's not that safe to cross Main Street. So to me, that's a totally separate issue, is that it needs to be safer for pedestrians to walk from, wherever to get here, to cross the street, or walk from down by the Rotary or whatever. So.
To me, it sounds like you did something nice for a good neighbor.
Other questions? Tom had a question.
More of a statement. I come to the library every day. Past 7 years, I don't think I've missed a day. And before that, 10 years. There's practically no one here during the day. I mean, and you got a great bookstore in town that ran their business in Worcester, and they moved here. They know how to run a bookstore. Amazon, We'll practically give you the book away. And we have a book sale every 2 months. So people can build themselves a library at home. I mean, there isn't anybody coming in here on a regular basis like me. And the computers aren't used except for a group that comes in. They're challenged, let's put it that way. They live in a home in town, and they come in and use it, but other than a few people here and there, the computers aren't used. I don't know why they're all there to run all day long. I have a lot of questions. I mean, there could have been this room divided up and done meetings in the small rooms. The computer company does it all the time. They tear down walls, put walls up. Could have been done a long time ago. The $750,000 for the windows and the roof and stuff like that. It took 7 years, and that money was given away back to the state and wrapped in with the big picture of building a whole new backside of this building. I mean, and there's people in town that have given money to the Catholic Church to rebuild the brick Catholic Church in town and do a roof. So there's money in town that could be used in significant ways to do certain small projects. And as far as the teenagers, they were given this area in front, and they come and sit in here. They don't sit out there. A small group of them do, but I've asked a number of times certain people not to talk in the library.
I have a question for you.
Yep.
You just said nobody comes here, but yet you're bothered by all the teenagers that come here and make a lot of noise. So
On
obviously people
Saturdays
do
and
come
Sundays, when they change the,
here. I just want to point that out to you.
small groups of,
Is there a question in there for our candidates?
why did the 700, well, no, it can't be, that was already done and passed. All I'm making is a statement. The library needs to function better than it does.
I would suggest that a lot of what goes on at the library is something that you can't see. And I've seen you in here. You're a presence, but you don't see people coming in over the internet using the facilities here. You don't see people getting reference material or information on how to reference material from the librarians.
That's fine.
And these are, but
If you want to build an addition, tear this part of the building down and put one up.
I think that is this an issue that's under discussion right now?
That has been voted down.
Yeah, that was then, and this is now. And I think in a very real sense, I think the people you're referring to won the day. But now we still have services that we have to give to people, and that's if you've got $750,000, we'll take it.
So
Plenty of people in town that have money.
Well,
Ron Petrinian gave $10 million to some group in Worcester. Ron Gaprillion grew up in town.
So we'll stop there. Mary Johnston, our board chair, would like to wrap it up and put a bow on it. And then our candidates will be here to chat informally as well. So Mary, take it away.
I just a quick thing about the artwork. So this wall over here, this is our third artist that we have featured. So if you come in, every 2 months, we're going to be trying to feature a new artist, and we're actually trying to think of ways to get new art into the library, and trying to come up with 3 jurors. In fact, I think we have 3 artists in the community that might want to be jurors to look at the art. So
That's
just
great.
wanted
I'm
to let
sorry
you
for
know
making a
that
suggestion.
we are working on it, and feel free to come in and enjoy the artwork, because we actually love it too.
And it's and I should also add it's Westborough artists.
Westborough
that we
artists
feature.
that we've done. This is our third Westborough.
Go ahead, Mary.
So I just wanted to say thank you so much for your interest in running for library trustee. I love the library. I'm very proud of the work that we've done here and our staff does here every single day. I think we are a large board in town. We are the largest. We are a 9-member board. And so I think having that many different people bring a lot of different perspectives to it. And I love seeing town involvement, because the only way to bring our library into the future and to keep our town growing in such a great way is for people to get involved. And so I'm really excited for the opportunity to work with some new faces, as we have 4 spots open. I'm a big believer in ending things on a positive note. So I would like, just in 1 or 2 words, for if you could each say what you consider your strength and what you'd bring as an asset to the board. That would be a great way to say.
I'm sorry, couldn't hear the last name.
What you consider a strength of yourself and like as an asset that you would bring to our board.
So just a couple words.
Like 1 or 2.
Let's see. Let's see. Enthusiasm and cooperation.
I tend to get along reasonably well with most people, even the ones who disagree with me, and there have been a few of those. And I'll stop there.
It's been my pleasure to work with the trustees and the staff since I joined the board back in 2008. I'm happy to keep working on behalf of the citizens and the library to keep the library in good shape. That's a easy answer to a hard problem. Thank you.
I think I would just say teamwork and collaboration.
People skills and persistence. I can stuff done.
Well, I've lived all over the world and I'm able to see multiple different perspectives.
Thank you for each and every one of you. Appreciate it.
That wasn't so bad.
No, that wasn't bad at all. I think the other one was.